Our house had a gas explosion. My sister was paralyzed in both legs, saving me. To repay her life-saving kindness, I eat 10 kilos of dog poop every day just to win the Guinness World Record for eating poop and use the 1 million yuan prize to cure my sister's legs. Until one day, when I was about to die from the smell of dog poop, rows of floating comments suddenly appeared before my eyes. You stupid cannon fodder! Do you know the female lead risked her life to get you out because she was afraid you'd discover the secret in the study? Was such a willing idiot paying up? No wonder the female lead got addicted to faking a disability. She's racing cars at the track with the neighbor boy right now. I didn't pay attention and continued to eat the last of the 10 kilos of dog poop, but because the poop stank too much, I accidentally fainted. When I woke up again, I was lying on a hospital bed. The doctor sternly informed me, your stomach is severely ulcerated with gastrointestinal bleeding. If you aren't hospitalized immediately, it will complicate into cancer. I dug out the 200+ yuan I just earned from my pocket, blushing with shame. Doctor, please just prescribe me some cheap painkillers. The doctor's face darkened completely. He closed the medical record, clearly not wanting to prescribe anything for me. I had to leave the hospital and went to a small roadside clinic to buy a box of painkillers for 2.5 yuan. I squatted under the dim streetlights and hastily swallowed 2 pills. As I swallowed them, the burning pain in my throat quickly spread to my stomach. I took out the remaining money in my pocket and looked at it over and over, looking at the transfer history to my sister. Only then did the pain gradually subside. Just hold on a little longer. Wait until I get the Guinness record for eating dog poop, then I can take my sister abroad for treatment. She's only 28 this year, paralyzed in both legs, can't find a job, might not even be able to get married. The rest of her life would be so miserable. Passing by a barbecue stall, looking at the fragrant skewers of meat, I swallowed my saliva, thinking of the leftover rice in the pot from this morning. I let out a sigh of relief and continued walking home. Gradually, my vision darkened again. Suddenly, a faint sneer rang vaguely in my ears. My whole body stiffened. I hurriedly looked around but saw no one until lines of text gradually appeared in the air. What a willing idiot. The female lead is already racing cars at the track with the neighbor boy. The money you saved isn't even enough to buy a bottle of water there. But the female lead is faking paralysis and faking bankruptcy while playing the innocent girl. It's a pity she didn't win an Oscar. Too many absurd and bizarre words flooded into my head. I felt that maybe because my stomach pain was too severe, I had become delirious, although my intuition told me this was fake. My body couldn't be controlled. I stood up and walked to the curb, suppressing the pain. I took all the money out of my pocket. After many years, I extravagantly hailed a taxi for the first time to the address of the racetrack in those floating comments. The taxi was stopped outside the racetrack. I got out of the car. Unsurprisingly, I was also stopped by the person in charge. Outside the racetrack, a familiar yet strange face appeared on the large screen. It was the 28-year-old paraplegic Liu Ruyan on the big screen. The first race car crossed the finish line. Stepping out with long legs, Liu Ruyan stepped down from the car. Liu Ruyan, who always had a pale, cold face due to disability and depression, skillfully took off her helmet. Liu Ruyan, with an eager face, full of vitality, two contradictory faces like that, made my vision gradually blur. The boy ran up to her and shoved a bouquet of bright red roses into her arms. I didn't hear the boy's voice, but I could recognize her lip movements. He said, "Sister, congratulations, but Liu Ruyan, who has depended on me for over 20 years. Why would she deceive me like that? Even when I was repeatedly sent to the emergency room by the smell of dog poop, almost dying, just to save money to cure her legs, and couldn't bear to pay the hospital fees, she still wouldn't tell the truth." A group of people from the racetrack gradually came out. They were talking excitedly, completely ignoring me standing in the dark corner. I heard a woman's laughter. "How long do you intend to deceive Liu Aikun? Last week I saw him on the roadside, enduring the stench and frantically eating dog poop. He nearly fainted. Even the stray dogs shook their heads seeing it. No matter how good it is, you can't eat it like that." I only heard Liu Ruyan speak in a low voice. "Mom and Dad died because of his stubbornness and mischief. He deserves to suffer a bit. To learn a lesson," the group exclaimed in admiration. "I really admire you, being so cruel even to your own brother." I stood by the roadside, feeling a chill rise from my feet, so she still doesn't believe me. The day Mom and Dad died, someone pointed out that I sent the text message telling them to drive to the riverbank. I cried and explained to Liu Ruyan. She hugged me in the funeral home, gently patted my back and said, "It's okay. I don't believe anyone. I only believe your words." But it turns out she didn't believe me. She never believed me. For the past 5 years, I struggled in the mire. It was just her act of revenge. So even when I had a heart attack from the smell of dog poop, hanging by a thread, and receiving a critical condition notice, she could still calmly tell me, the family is out of money. She really had no other choice. The group passed by me, gradually moving away. I looked at Liu Ruyan's back, the woman who had been in a wheelchair for years, now standing tall and graceful, making me almost afraid to recognize her. Finally, I spoke up. When I spoke, my throat was full of bitterness. "Are you having fun?" My voice was cold. The woman talking to the person next to her suddenly stopped. I watched her stiffen for 3 full seconds without moving. A long while later, she finally turned around. A flicker of surprise and panic flashed in her eyes, then quickly turned to calm. She hates me, so 5 years of deception and teasing for her probably didn't feel like much of a sin. She heard my voice, indifferent as if nothing had happened. Not bad. This sentence was like a small needle stabbing hard into my heart. The person next to her awkwardly tried to smooth things over. I couldn't listen to our explanation. Your sister. Sister. Liu Ruyan quietly interrupted the person. He saw it all. What is there to explain? She said, then looked at me with sarcasm. You probably heard everything you needed to hear, right? Even though I knew she wouldn't believe it, I still struggled to speak. The message Mom and Dad received that year was really not sent by me, Liu Ruyan revealed disgust in her eyes. Liu Aikun, you are 25 years old this year. After all these years, you still dare to do, but not dare to admit. Too many grievances and self-pity wanting to be explained came to my lips, but in the end, they were forced back by her unconcealed disgust and hatred, forcing me to swallow them. A long while, finally, I bowed my head. I know, it's my fault. If only this answer would satisfy her, then just let it be as she wishes. Liu Ruyan chuckled softly. Jinqing was right. You should suffer a bit more, to learn how to be a bit more sensible. I looked up, just catching Tong Jincheng's eyes, innocent but unable to hide the smugness. Back when Mom and Dad were alive, my family and the Tong family were old friends. Tong Jincheng was the only son of the Tong family. He always shamelessly followed Liu Ruyan, calling her sister. At that time, I would disgruntledly chase him away, but Liu Ruyan never cared. In the blink of an eye, they could be so close. I stood there for a long time. When I came to my senses, Liu Ruyan's figure had already disappeared. On my phone, senior sister texted me, do you really not need the study abroad slot? That year you dropped out in your third year? Teacher Chen regretted it very much. This time he specially applied for an extra slot for you, all expenses covered. I looked at the message, a bit dazed. The other side sent another message. Can't bear to leave Liu Ruyan? Finally, I hesitated no more, reached out to reply to the message. I've thought it through before, I agree to go. In mid-air, the floating comments started appearing frantically again. Great, the cannon fodder brother is finally going abroad, so is the female lead about to take my boy as her biological brother? Pfft, what biological brother? Isn't it better to watch the sweet romance line straight away? But isn't this a sister-brother romance story? Jin Cheng and the female lead aren't blood-related, trust me. There will definitely be a romance line for them later. The lines of text scrolled frantically, making me a bit dizzy, dragging my thoughts into a blur. Some plot details were forced into my head. I realized the world I live in is an angst novel, and I, as the female lead's cannon fodder brother, will soon die or go missing. The female lead will be heartbroken, treat Tong Jincheng as a replacement brother, then gradually develop feelings. The two get together, while traces of my existence are gradually erased completely. No one cares anymore. So going abroad, leaving completely, is my only choice to escape death. Over 20 years of Liu Ruyan and I depending on each other are nothing more than a hasty detail in the book. I wandered aimlessly on the street. The cold wind seemed to blow into my marrow until my phone suddenly rang. I looked at the incoming call, showing sister. For a moment, I even felt I saw it wrong. Liu Ruyan's cold voice came from the other end. Go back to the old house. The fake disability was exposed. She stopped acting completely before. She lied that the company went bankrupt, said she sold the old house to pay debts. Obviously, that was fake too. I recalled the past 5 years, the dilapidated house I always lived in, rent less than 500 yuan a month. It must have been hard for Liu Ruyan to stay there occasionally. My voice went hoarse. I'm not going back. My stuff is still at the rental anyway. There are only a few days left before I go abroad. The other side gave a meaningful cold laugh, then hung up abruptly. I had a bad feeling, but couldn't say what was wrong, until I returned to the cramped rental house, opened the door. My bedroom was a mess. The middle-aged landlady was dragging out my last shirt and casually threw it on the ground, in the drawers. My belongings were also ransacked. Most were scattered on the floor. Before I could question her, the landlady heard the noise, turned around, looked at me, glaring angrily. You still dare to come back? She rushed over, grabbed my arm. If you don't pay rent today, don't even think about leaving. For a moment I was stunned, suddenly remembering the monthly rent. I was afraid Liu Ruyan would forget, so I always reminded her to transfer it to the landlord, worried she had no job, and feeling uneasy, I was used to transferring all the money I earned to her. But this month, I was really too busy and forgot to tell her. The landlady shrieked in criticism. Your sister came to pack luggage. Said straight up she had no money. Now you're playing dumb too. I knew early on you two wanted to skip out on the debt. My head spun violently, suddenly remembering Liu Ruyan's cold laugh when she hung up. All of this was probably within her calculations. Pretending for 5 years, she probably couldn't wait any longer to vent her hatred. In my dizziness, I struggled to take the money out of my pocket. Before I could speak, it was snatched by the landlady, calculating that my remaining money was less than 200, just enough to pay half this month's rent. I almost had to hold on to the wall to get into the bedroom and pick up random clothes on the floor. My stomach burned with hunger, intending to pack some stuff and leave. The rest would have to wait. The landlady got the money, but her voice didn't stop. Never seen siblings rent a single bedroom to live in. The sister dresses smartly. Doesn't look short of money. Puffed. You still have to compensate me for the cleaning fee. My head buzzed, dragging my reason a bit out of control. The words were truly grating, angry. I tried to stand up before I could stand straight. Everything went black. I fell hard. In my vague consciousness, I heard a thud, not sure where my head hit, mixed with a ringing in my ears that started to get piercing. The landlady panicked, dropped a "pack your stuff," and hurriedly left the room. I was unconscious for a while. When I woke up, the surroundings were extremely quiet. It seemed to have started raining outside. There was the sound of rain falling on the windowsill. I took my luggage and left the rental house. When passing a small supermarket, I saw the owner come out, throwing a bag of rotten fruit and some probably expired bread into the roadside trash can. I stared for a long time. When I realized what I was thinking, I suddenly wanted to laugh, but couldn't. Wondering when I fell into this situation, I picked up an unwrapped loaf of bread, stared at it for a long time by the roadside, and finally unwrapped it to eat. Luckily, it was dark. No one noticed. Otherwise, it would be so humiliating. My phone vibrated once. WeChat showed a message. I opened it to see a message retracted by Liu Ruyan, staring for a while. I don't know why my vision blurred. Actually, she probably just sent the wrong message, or that message was just scolding me, mocking me. But someone like me has always been good at self-deception, thinking that maybe since it's this late, she would also be a little worried about me. I touched my pocket, not a single penny left. Finally, I still called Liu Ruyan, called back and forth several times. The other side finally picked up. "The wind is strong tonight," I said somewhat hesitantly. "Can you come pick me up? I don't have money for a cab anymore. I can't walk that far back to the old house." The other side was silent for a long time before laughing. The voice probably carried the joy of victory and venting anger. "What's wrong? Do you not have legs?" Without a hint of negotiation, I was speechless until I heard the beep of the call ending. Actually, during the 5 years Liu Ruyan faked paralysis, she didn't treat me well either. She would knock the soup I stayed up late to stew for her onto the ground. When I was exhausted by the stench and begged her to take me to the hospital, she would smile and tell me the same sentence. "What's wrong? Liu Aikun, do you not have legs?" But back then I believed her legs were paralyzed, believed she had depression. I consoled myself that she treated me badly because of depression. Now I understand she just hated me, convinced that I sent the message that killed mom and dad so she didn't want me to live well. Actually, I should have realized it sooner. She has hated me for a long time. I finished the bread in the cold wind. The long night was quiet. Thinking back, Liu Ruyan couldn't possibly come. I really had no other choice. I steeled myself to call senior sister Sudaji. It's embarrassing to say, it must be early morning where she is, but she picked up very quickly. I didn't want to disturb her sleep too much, no matter how hard it was to speak. I went straight to the point, spoke up, asked if she could lend me some money. The other side was silent for a long time. My ears got a bit hot, suddenly thinking she's studying abroad. For years, she and I have actually been out of touch. It's not very appropriate to presumptuously borrow money like this. I hurriedly wanted to change the subject, end the call, until the voice from the other side came through. "Where are you?" My consciousness was chaotic. I even started to have trouble distinguishing if it was Sudaji or Liu Ruyan. Talking, I vaguely gave the address, then ended the call. Actually, I knew no one would come. Sudaji is far away abroad. She asked for my address, mostly just to pass the word to Liu Ruyan. In my blurry vision, the floating comments started scrambling to appear again. "This nuisance wants to play the victim again, to call the female lead over. Luckily, the female lead isn't stupid, knowing it's Jincheng's birthday and she must be by his side if she dares to leave. Later, when she regrets it like burning fire, we won't forgive her. So today is Tong Jincheng's birthday. Before, Liu Ruyan would also celebrate my birthday with me. She would order me a Lamborghini-shaped cake, buy me my favorite transforming robot. She hasn't celebrated my birthday with me for several years. I thought hard but couldn't remember. As I sat by the roadside about to doze off, I vaguely heard someone calling me. I struggled to look up, saw a graceful figure approaching me. I tried to open my eyes, wanting to see clearly who it was, until I vaguely heard Sudaji's voice. Clearly, "How could you be Liu Ruyan?" I wanted to ask her why she suddenly returned to the country. When did she return? But as soon as I opened my mouth, sour gastric acid suddenly surged up my throat. It felt like my internal organs were churning. Before I could get up and run to the trash can, vomit splattered onto the sleeve of Sudaji, who was worriedly trying to help me up. My throat was full of sourness. I apologized with difficulty. Sorry. Consciousness chaotic. I kept repeating those words. Sudaji frowned, seemed to say something to me. I didn't hear clearly, only vaguely heard the word hospital. Probably wanted to take me to the hospital. I was helped up by her, instinctively refused. "No need, I'm not going to the hospital." Liu Ruyan pretended for 5 years, treated her paralyzed legs in the hospital for 5 years. In those 5 years, I risked my life. Most of the money earned was paid into the window of that private hospital. I don't know what agreement they reached with Liu Ruyan to act along with her for 5 years. I don't want to go there anymore. Sudaji helped me to the car, saying we're going to her place. Until not far ahead, a cold voice rang out, "Let go." I tried to lift my head, looking for a long time on the dimly lit road, only reluctantly seeing Liu Ruyan clearly with a face cold as ice. Her skin was cold white. Maybe she didn't notice when coming. There was still a bit of light green cream on her left cheek. Tong Jincheng's birthday. She probably left midway from there. Her expression naturally couldn't be good. I looked away, softly said to Sudaiji, "Sorry to trouble you. Senior sister, open the door. I want to get in." Behind was Liu Ruyan, who was usually so indifferent. Her voice rarely sounded so out of control. "Liu Aikun, stop right there. I didn't care. I just got in the car." Before closing the door, I heard Liu Ruyan's voice full of hatred. "You killed my parents, Liu Aikun. Don't you and Sudaiji have nightmares in the dead of night?" My hand on the car door suddenly stiffened, like a needle piercing my heart. I didn't know why she dragged Sudaiji into this. Maybe she was truly angry enough to lose all reason. Through the car window, I saw Liu Ruyan's face full of rage. The wind blew her bangs messy. She stood there all alone, looking lonely again. Her hands were trembling slightly. I closed my eyes. Her face instantly vanished. Only pitch blackness remained in my sight. In that darkness, I seemed to see a lot of things again. The Liu Ruyan of many years ago, holding my hand tightly walking home from school. Since I was old enough to understand, my memories of my parents were actually very blurry. They didn't like me, they hated being around me. When I was 12, I accidentally heard a maid at home say, when Mom was pregnant with me, she ran to the hospital several times to get an abortion. But my mother had anemia. It really was my fate. That day was New Year's Eve. Mom and Dad celebrated the New Year abroad. Besides the maid, only Liu Ruyan and I were home. I envied the kids from other families setting off fireworks with their parents on New Year's Eve. Liu Ruyan bought fireworks too. She held my hand and spoke. Passing by the kitchen, we happened to hear the maid mocking me on the phone. The fireworks in my arms fell, scattering all over the ground. I bit my lip tight but couldn't hold it back and cried out loud. 15-year-old Liu Ruyan rushed into the kitchen with a dark face. She snatched the phone from the maid and smashed it hard on the ground. The phone screen shattered. The angry maid raised her hand to slap her. I instinctively rushed forward, blocking in front of her. A burning pain quickly spread across my face. By the time I came back to my senses, the maid was screaming, clutching her arm. Fresh blood gushed from between her fingers, dripping onto the pure white tiles. It was a terrifying scene. Liu Ruyan stood in front of her. Her hand holding the cleaver was trembling. Her eyes were red. I tremblingly called her name a few times. She didn't move at all, like she had turned to stone. The next day, Mom and Dad rushed back from abroad. They compensated the maid with a sum of money and dragged Liu Ruyan and me to apologize. Liu Ruyan shielded me behind her back, staring coldly at that maid. "If you badmouth Liu Aikun again, watch out for your other arm." Dad angrily slapped her face. Mom was silent for a long time, then spoke. "Take Liu Aikun away. Let someone else raise him." I was scared witless. But the fear of my parents was ingrained in my bones since childhood. The fear of my parents made me not dare to talk back to them. Liu Ruyan turned around and grabbed my wrist tightly. "If you two send him away, then I'll go with him." Mom and Dad flew into a rage. They threw a bank card at Liu Ruyan and went abroad again that very night. Afterward, Liu Ruyan fired the maid. We didn't dare hire a new one. There were no adults in the house. She started wearing an apron, frying eggs and toasting bread for me in the morning. Then we went to school together. After school, she no longer went out with others. Instead, she learned how to go to the market to buy groceries. In the evening, she cooked all the dishes I liked. We sat opposite each other by the window. She raised her glass of juice, gently clinking it against mine. Looking at my red-rimmed eyes under the light, her eyes were filled with tenderness. "With Sis here, what are you afraid of?" Until that night, many years later, Mom and Dad drove out in a snowstorm to find me because of a text message. Because the road was icy and visibility was poor, a car accident occurred. To this day, recalling the scene of my parents' death is very hard for me. I only remember that day I had a sudden whim, wanting to find a family photo. I went into the study and saw a letter Liu Ruyan left on the desk. After arguing with Mom and Dad, she planned to move abroad permanently, never to return. I hurriedly told her that settling abroad wasn't very suitable, and never coming back was even worse. Don't be impulsive. Liu Ruyan, who was always calm, was unusually agitated that night. She knocked over the teacup, angrily questioning me why not. "I can't go abroad. Do I have to stay by your side forever, watching over you? Liu Aikun, don't you have hands? Don't you have feet? Can't you live without me? Or what on earth are you thinking in that head of yours?" Blood rushed to my head. I looked at her in disbelief. I really couldn't believe she could say such things. I lost control of my emotions. I slapped her. We had a huge fight. In the end, books on the shelf, cups, and pen holders were all messy, scattered all over the floor. It took a long time for me to slowly calm down. Then I spoke coldly. "You should go see a neurologist. I'll tell Mom and Dad, ask them to take you to the doctor." Liu Ruyan stared at me with red eyes. She didn't say anything else. When I left the study, I realized I left my phone at the company. I rushed to the company to get it. Once I got the phone, I received the news of my parents' death. And on my phone, half an hour ago, a message was sent to Mom. Liu Ruyan probably wouldn't forget. That night when I left the study, I told her that I was going to find Mom and Dad. So to this day, she never believed that I didn't send that message. So for the past 5 years, she faked being crippled, faked depression, faked bankruptcy, just to happily watch me act like a clown, being spun around, now struggling in the mud. When I pulled my thoughts back, Sudaiji had driven to her place and tidied up a room for me. I couldn't help asking her before returning to the country, "Did you meet Liu Ruyan's boyfriend in Auckland?" In these 5 years, I've never heard Liu Ruyan mention that guy. Maybe because mom and dad passed away, Liu Ruyan broke up with him. Back then, she was willing to settle abroad permanently for that guy. Thinking back, she must have loved him deeply. Sudaji handed me the brewed ginger tea. Hearing that, she was stunned. What boyfriend? Her memory seemed to have gotten worse. I explained to her, the guy Liu Ruyan dated 5 years ago. They dated for several years. Didn't you know? Sudaji's expression got even weirder. After a long silence, she spoke softly. Liu Aikun, you're tired. Get some rest. I felt her expression looked weirder the more I looked. Late at night, I lay in bed. It was pitch black and dead silent around me. Thinking of Sudaji's words, you'll be departing this weekend. I opened the phone app and booked the flight ticket. WeChat chimed. Liu Ruyan sent another message. Liu Aikun, come home. I stared at that message. An unfamiliar sentence inexplicably popped into my head, also in Liu Ruyan's voice. In front of the orphanage, 15-year-old Liu Ruyan held my hand and said, Aikun, I'm taking you home. That's crazy. Obviously, I was a child of the Liu family from birth. Sudaji wasn't wrong. Maybe I'm really tired. I should rest. On the other side, Liu Ruyan called again. Most likely she just couldn't stand me suddenly being disobedient. I switched the phone to silent mode and threw it on the nightstand, closed my eyes, and quickly fell into a deep sleep. In the chaos, I returned to the study of many years ago, the love letter on the desk, filled with Liu Ruyan's love for another boy and her determination to take that boy abroad to settle down. In an instant, those words were blown away by the wind, turning into the handwriting of a young girl, delicate yet sharp. A short sentence. Hope Liu Ruyan will always stand by Liu Aikun's side. I woke up from the dream with a start. Outside the window, the night was cold as water. I was covered in cold sweat. The dream was so absurd, it took me a long time to recover. Sleepiness vanished completely. I sat on the bed, forcing myself to stay awake until dawn. On the phone, Liu Ruyan sent the last message. Liu Aikun, you will regret this. I was confused, but very quickly understood what she meant. When I finished packing and went downstairs, I heard Sudaji with a serious expression talking on the phone. I've passed probation for over a month now. Firing me without cause is illegal. Impossible. I never revealed company secrets. I can sue you all. Her emotions were clearly very bad. I got close, but she didn't even notice. I vaguely heard a cold voice on the other end. We have solid evidence in hand. We don't mind going through legal procedures. Then I vaguely heard a woman's voice cut in, with a flattering tone. Miss Liu, can we sign the contract yet? I recalled Liu Ruyan's last message, and quickly figured out what was happening. Sudaji hurriedly rushed out the door, probably going to the company to argue, or contacting a lawyer to sue. She was always calm, but right now her back showed a hint of struggle. Back then she hated her father's style and cut ties with the Su family. Later she struggled on her own, working while studying, finished university, then went abroad to study. Working part-time carrying plates abroad, others said she had grit, but I knew she had suffered a lot. Now back in the country after studying for this decent job, she had also put in too much effort. I went to Liu Ruyan's company. The receptionist rejected my request to meet Liu Ruyan, with a cold tone. Director Liu has ordered he doesn't have a younger brother now. Mr. Liu, you don't seem to have any business to discuss either. I was kicked out. Standing in the cold wind for over an hour, Liu Ruyan's message finally arrived like a blessing. When I got into the elevator, my ears still seemed to hear the wind howling, so dizzy my head felt like it was splitting. In the office, Liu Ruyan lowered her eyes, calmly looking at documents. She didn't want to look at me. I also couldn't rush her. In my dizzy state, I stared at her continuous signing motion with blurry eyes. I don't know how long it took, but her voice suddenly rang out. How long are you going to stare? I snapped back to reality, only to realize, without noticing when, she had stopped signing, looking at me coldly. I still had some self-awareness, knowing she hates me now so I didn't beat around the bush. Went straight to the point, stated my purpose for coming. Senior sister Su is an innocent outsider. Can you please not make things difficult for her? Liu Ruyan suddenly threw the signing pen in her hand onto the table. The clash of the metal pen and the table surface suddenly pounded my chest. She laughed coldly, looking at me with eyes like invisible blades. Sudaji, she's innocent? Back when mom and dad just left, so many orders from the 3 companies almost fell into the Su family's hands. Aikun, why are you still playing dumb? I instinctively explained. That was her father fishing in troubled waters. Sudaji had already cut ties with the Su family long ago. She's not at fault. Liu Ruyan's voice rose with hatred. These lies, do you think he'll believe them? She's innocent? Then the person who sent the text to mom and dad in the snowstorm? Are you innocent too? I just felt my fingernails digging into my palms. My emotions were about to collapse, almost screaming out. How many more times do I have to say it? I didn't send that message? Tears fell for some reason, sliding to the corner of my lips, tasting salty. I struggled to raise my hand to wipe my eyes frantically. In the corner of my eye, I seemed to see Liu Ruyan. Her mocking expression suddenly paused. When I looked at her, she had awkwardly turned her head to look out the window. I could only see the side of her face. Couldn't distinguish her current emotions. I slowly calmed down, finally just sighed softly and said, "Fine, have it your way." I turned and walked out of the office. Behind was Liu Ruyan's voice, almost mad with anger. "I really hope when Mom and Dad said they wanted to take you away back then, I hadn't stopped them." I stopped abruptly. Invisible pain seemed to spread through my limbs. That night many years ago, when I was most helpless, the only sister who stood firmly in front of me, on this day many years later, finally began to regret not abandoning me sooner. But it's okay. It's all right. I'm leaving soon too. It's fine. She will soon get her wish. I didn't turn back, spoke hoarsely. "Then just consider that I've been taken away. Let's not meet again." Behind me was the sound of something shattering on the floor. I didn't stop. Left the place. When I stepped out of the elevator, there was heavy rain outside. It came out of nowhere. I didn't plan to torture my body either, even though the receptionist didn't give me a good look. I still lingered at the main lobby entrance, planning to wait for the rain to let up a bit before leaving. Not long after I came down, Liu Ruyan also stepped out of the elevator. I wasn't so sentimental as to think she followed me down. So I looked away, pretending not to see. She put the phone to her ear, making a call. I didn't know if she really didn't notice my existence. She walked over, sitting right on the sofa next to me. A very long phone call. She wouldn't leave. I was a bit restless. Looked at the rain outside a few times, but the rain only got heavier. She finally hung up, but still didn't leave. Ideally, this should be the busiest time for the company. I really felt a bit strange. Couldn't help glancing over. A quick glance. Just happened to catch her gaze looking over. She didn't dodge it either, just stared blankly straight at me. Sitting close, I smelled the strong scent of alcohol on her. Thinking of seeing her in the office earlier, there was only half a bottle of whiskey left on the desk. Thinking I didn't have many days left in the country, I couldn't help but remind her, "Drink less alcohol. Your heart is inherently." Liu Ruyan, rarely not retorting, still didn't look happy. After a long time, she faintly responded with a The rain outside didn't seem to lessen and wouldn't stop anytime soon. I stood up to go out. Liu Ruyan suddenly stood up too, handing me an umbrella. It was a custom-made company umbrella. A small name was engraved on the handle of each umbrella. That was requested by Liu Ruyan. Once we were very close siblings. I took the umbrella, said thanks, and hurriedly stepped into the rain. Behind, Liu Ruyan seemed to say something. Raindrops tapped on the umbrella. I couldn't hear clearly. I returned to Sudaji's place, intending to apologize to her for causing her to lose her job. Just entering the door, I heard Sudaji helplessly say, "The boss said it was a mistake, revoked the dismissal letter, and even fired the employee who spread rumors that I leaked company secrets." She said so, but her expression was a bit suspicious. Was it really a mistake? On the phone, I seemed to hear Liu Ruyan's voice. "Did she look for trouble with you?" I was stunned for a moment. Finally didn't mention that I went to find Liu Ruyan. Just shook my head and said no. For the remaining days, I started getting busy preparing to go abroad. The bonus money received from eating feces before, plus the subsidy from the school over there, I paid back the money I borrowed from Sudaji. Then bought some items needed for abroad. The luggage was all packed. Miscellaneous tasks were gradually dealt with. The day I went abroad happened to be my birthday. I invited a few old friends I used to eat with, who I was on pretty good terms with, for lunch. They said goodbye to me. Everyone's eyes were red. When leaving the restaurant, I saw the square outside the mall had hung up red lanterns. Ted is coming. The New Year atmosphere is gradually spreading. I suddenly remembered countless New Year's Eves from many years ago. It was always Liu Ruyan and me sitting opposite each other, clinking glasses. Happy New Year. Back then, I regretted not having Mom and Dad around, and she comforted me, saying in the future, every New Year's Eve and New Year, she would be by my side. This year won't be like that anymore. The wind suddenly stung my eyes. I raised my hand to rub my eyes, suddenly saw Liu Ruyan standing not far away. I thought it was a momentary hallucination, until she actually walked towards me. We also started becoming strangers like this. Even standing a bit close like this, I started feeling awkward and unnatural. A while later, she was finally the first to speak. "Word. The wind is very strong." Her voice was actually a bit quiet. I almost didn't hear it clearly. She said, "Happy birthday." My eyes suddenly turned red. Liu Ruyan said again a bit unnaturally, "Just happened that an old client gave a cake. It's blue. You probably like it. I'll give it to you when we get home." Maybe when parting ways, people are always more emotional. In that moment, I couldn't hold it back. I was about to leave, yet I nearly cried. No matter the grudges, perhaps it really is time to say goodbye. I got in the car following Liu Ruyan back to the old house. Sitting in the car, I secretly took out my phone to check the flight time again. Actually, I don't have much time left, but I thought if I didn't make it in time, I'd just change the ticket to a later flight. Arriving at the old house, Liu Ruyan took the blue Lamborghini cake out of the box. Along with it was a blue greeting card. It fell to the ground. I crouched down to pick it up. The first thing that caught my eye was to the esteemed Mr. Tong Jin Cheng. It felt like a sudden heavy punch to my body. I suddenly thought, how could I have thought that even today, Liu Ruyan would actually celebrate my birthday with me? I pretended not to see Liu Ruyan's intentional mockery on it. I picked up the card and set it aside. Liu Ruyan took out the candles, intending to put them on the cake. Under the bright lights, I saw her looking at me, a hint of a smile in her eyes, just like the Liu Ruyan from years ago, smiling gently at me. But I knew the current Liu Ruyan had long stopped smiling at me. Just like right now, in that smile in her eyes, I only saw hypocrisy and sarcasm. Before she could put the candles on the cake, her phone rang, and she answered it. I heard Tong Jincheng crying on the other end of the line. I didn't know what had happened. I sat down at the dining table, silently waiting, until Liu Ruyan whispered something and Tong Jincheng on the other side asked urgently, a bit agitated, "Sister Ruyan, are you really not coming?" Liu Ruyan bowed her head slightly, the light casting a shadow across her face. She was silent for a long time and glanced at me. The card with Tong Jincheng's name was still by my hand. Actually, she didn't need to hesitate so hypocritically. I spoke up, "Go ahead." Liu Ruyan seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and instructed me, "Wait for me to come back, then make a wish." I nodded. She quickly turned and left. I sat for a while, then stood up anyway and walked quickly out of the hall. Liu Ruyan hurriedly walked down the steps, heading toward the car parked in the front yard. I looked at her retreating figure. In the past, when Mom and Dad were still alive, every time Liu Ruyan had to leave me for something, if I saw her off, she would definitely turn back, as if she had eyes in the back of her head and could see me. But this time, she decisively opened the door and got in, driving away, without turning back at all, and without stopping. The comments in the air began to pour out again. The sentimental supporting male lead. This time, all hope is lost. Taking the cake that belonged to my boy. Now go enjoy it by yourself. After eating, hurry up and get lost. I closed my eyes. Those comments finally dissipated. I went back inside, looking at that blue Lamborghini cake. Finally, I left a note on the back of the card. I'm leaving. Maybe I won't come back in the future. I didn't touch the cake. Give it back to Tong Jincheng. This can reluctantly be considered a farewell, I guess. The phone rang. Su Daji was calling. Checking the time, fortunately there was still time. It saved me from having to change tickets. I caught a taxi to the airport. Snow still piled up on the roadside, and New Year lanterns were gradually being hung up along the street. Along with that, Liu Ruyan's face gradually faded away. While waiting at the airport, Su Daji and I had some late-night snacks. The phone was placed on the table, and I ate absent-mindedly, until Su Daji asked if I was waiting for a call. You'll have to change your SIM card when you get there. If there's a call you haven't made, remember to make it soon. I snapped back to reality, shook my head, and said no. Su Daji looked suspicious. But you've been staring at your phone so many times. I felt a bit embarrassed. I hurriedly put the phone back in my pocket. Su Daji hesitated to speak, but finally spoke up. About you going abroad, did you tell Liu Ruyan? I recalled the words I wrote on the back of the card and nodded. Yeah, I told her. Su Daji instinctively pressed. Then didn't she? She stopped halfway. After a long silence, she sighed softly. Never mind, I whispered. It's fine. She won't care. As Liu Ruyan had said, I really hope that back when Mom and Dad wanted to kick you out, she hadn't stopped them. So now that I'm leaving, she'll just clap and say good riddance. Su Daji looked at me silently. She revealed that strange look again, perhaps feeling sorry for me. Passing through security, as I was about to hand over my phone, Liu Ruyan called. The security officer looked at me inquiringly. I froze for a moment but finally answered and stepped aside, not continuing through security yet. Liu Ruyan, after so many years, rarely had a tone that wasn't terrible. It even carried a hint of guilt. I understood her so well that I didn't need to hear the rest. I already knew exactly what she wanted to say. The airport was a bit noisy, so her voice was slightly muffled. Jincheng is having some trouble. You stay at the old house for now. Wait until tomorrow. We'll buy you another cake tomorrow. It won't be my birthday. She clearly knew a birthday is a birthday. Once the day passes, it's not the same anymore. In the past, when Mom and Dad didn't want to return to the country, they said the same thing, and Liu Ruyan would sneer and say, hypocrites. But now, those same words, she started using them herself. Since I was about to leave, I didn't intend to make things difficult for her. I finally just said one sentence, it's fine. Luckily, I knew she wouldn't come back, so I wasn't there. Waiting for her to hang up, I hesitated no longer and turned off the phone. Through security, onto the plane. The plane soared to 10,000 meters, and Haicheng City gradually disappeared. Into the clouds. The call was disconnected, and for some reason Liu Ruyan felt her heart skip a beat. She suddenly felt uneasy, as if something that was within her grasp was suddenly pulled away. In the hospital bed, Tong Jincheng, with a pale face, spoke softly, calling her name a few times. Liu Ruyan. She pretended not to hear, her gaze unwavering, staring blankly at the darkening phone screen, until Tong Jincheng reached out and patted her arm, speaking with concern. I've been thinking about that letter paper again lately. Sister Ruyan, if it's a letter, and you've kept it all this time, don't you really intend to tell Liu Aikun again? Do you need my help? I said. Liu Ruyan suddenly snapped back to reality and hurriedly said out of reflex, no need. Tong Jincheng looked at her strangely with a puzzled expression. Why? Liu Aikun is just sponsored by the Liu family. You treat him like a biological brother. Maybe your memory is just confused. Liu Ruyan naturally knew well. Liu Aikun was not her brother. He was just an orphan sponsored by the Liu family. Otherwise, she couldn't have developed strange feelings for Liu Aikun. But there were words that still couldn't be spoken. She didn't dare say them anymore. She didn't dare forget Liu Aikun and the words he said when he slapped her 5 years ago. If there's a next time, Liu Ruyan, we will never see each other again. Her train of thought was jerked back, and Liu Ruyan hoarsely repeated that sentence. In short, Tong Jincheng said, "Oh," clutched his head and began to sob again. My headaches have been getting worse lately. The doctor says the migraine is severe again, he said as he crawled out of bed, crying and hugging Liu Ruyan tightly. Sister Ruyan, am I going to die? The smell on him wasn't too strong, but the scent of tobacco, which Liu Ruyan couldn't ignore, assaulted her nose. Liu Ruyan felt truly nauseous smelling it, trying to suppress the urge to push him away, while comforting him with words, saying it would be okay, but her thoughts had drifted far away. He was clearly lying in a hospital bed, saying he felt so terrible, yet he didn't forget to smoke. Not for the first time, Liu Ruyan couldn't help but suspect, did Tong Jincheng's illness really flare up that often? He called her away from Liu Aikun time and time again. Was it really so unintentional? He mentioned that letter paper time and again, saying he wanted to tell Liu Aikun. Wasn't that really intentional blackmail? Thinking of Liu Aikun, Liu Ruyan couldn't help remembering Liu Aikun's last sentence. It's fine. A feeling of panic and inexplicable uneasiness surged. What exactly was she uneasy about? Why did she feel that in Liu Aikun's overly calm words lay something else she couldn't accept? Was he really still obediently staying at the old house? After struggling to soothe Tong Jincheng, she found an excuse to leave. Liu Ruyan hesitated no more, speeding back to the old house in the middle of the night. She opened the door, but there was no sign of Liu Aikun. Her heart suddenly sank to the bottom of the abyss. In the warm room, Liu Ruyan felt cold all over. The blue cake still sat on the dining table. Liu Ruyan consoled herself. Maybe Aikun just went upstairs to rest. Maybe he just couldn't wait and left tonight. She had said she would make up for his birthday tomorrow. He didn't refuse, so no matter what, tomorrow would definitely come. Beside the cake, there seemed to be a card. What was that? Liu Ruyan had no recollection of it. The few steps to the dining table suddenly became very difficult. Liu Ruyan gradually made out the handwriting on the card. It was Liu Aikun's handwriting, the one she was most familiar with. I'm leaving. Maybe I won't come back in the future. I didn't touch the cake. Give it back to Tong Jincheng. What does this mean? What does this mean? Like a bucket of cold water suddenly poured down without warning over Liu Ruyan's head. What did he mean by the cake? Give it back to Tong Jincheng. What did he mean by won't come back in the future? Her body swaying, Liu Ruyan nearly collapsed. Extreme panic and confusion mingled with anger, causing Liu Ruyan to snatch the card. When she saw the words on the front of the card, to the esteemed Mr. Tong Jincheng, the cake she had specially ordered for Liu Aikun, was the bakery crazy? So Liu Aikun saw this card but didn't tell her. What was he thinking at that moment? Thinking she deliberately called him over using a cake that didn't belong to him to humiliate and mock him? But that wasn't it in an instant. Fear and insecurity welled up, mixed with an emotion bordering on rage, making Liu Ruyan call the bakery. Her palms wouldn't stop trembling, until the shop manager's very reluctant voice came through. Miss Liu, Mr. Tong came by this afternoon. He said you ordered this cake for him, and told us to add his name. We saw that the previous times you ordered cakes, they were for him, so we didn't confirm with you again. Veins popped on Liu Ruyan's forehead, and her head buzzed. Over the past 5 years, countless times when she wanted to find Liu Aikun or be with him, it was always that tear-streaked face, that innocent expression. Tong Jincheng would use a phone call to summon her away. In this moment, Liu Ruyan absolutely couldn't take it anymore. Dark-faced, she made a call. The gentleness she had feigned for 5 years completely vanished in this instant. She almost screamed herself hoarse, questioning Tong Jincheng. Are you happy? Is it fun? On the other end, Tong Jincheng's crying was heard again. I just happened to pass by and thought you ordered it for me. Liu Ruyan laughed coldly repeatedly, hatred gradually destroying her reason. I told you this morning I would celebrate Aikun's birthday tonight. Tong Jincheng, your hypocrisy is disgusting. The other side was silent for a moment, then started sobbing in disbelief. I'm sorry. I'll go apologize to Liu Aikun and help you tell him what's on the paper. Only a blazing red remained in Liu Ruyan's eyes. She finally lost her last shred of reason. Then go. Tong Jincheng, no need to threaten me anymore. I want to be with Liu Aikun. Go tell him. If Tong Jincheng was determined to be entangled endlessly, if Liu Aikun and she were destined to drift further apart, then go tell Liu Aikun that she still hasn't given up her twisted intentions and still wants to be with him. Let Liu Aikun hate her. Hating her completely was better than starting countless wordless confrontations now, like strangers. On the other end was Tong Jincheng's panicked and shocked voice. Ruyan. Liu Ruyan smirked, articulating every word. Go tell him. Go tell him right now. if you can even still contact Liu Aikun." The other side finally went silent. The call timer was still ticking. Liu Ruyan took the phone and stumbled upstairs. She searched every bedroom, then the terrace, the study. She wanted to find Liu Aikun, but she couldn't find him. She took out her phone and texted him, "Where did you go?" But it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. Liu Ruyan searched everywhere, then went into the study. The window wasn't closed. The night wind quietly blew in, blowing away the letter paper on the desk. The handwriting that 18-year-old Liu Ruyan left on it had now started to yellow. Liu Ruyan suddenly remembered the first time she met Liu Aikun. That year, Liu Ruyan was 15. Her parents took her to the orphanage for a visit. The visit lasted less than a day, yet countless cameras followed. The Liu parents held 2 live streams back-to-back just to get the family business listed on the stock exchange. In the end, they only donated 5,000 yuan to the orphanage. Liu Ruyan found it ridiculous. Yet as the visit was ending, the Liu parents wanted to act for the cameras, randomly calling over a boy who was passing by, claiming they wanted to sponsor his education. They only said that in front of the media. They basically had no interest in doing so. Liu Ruyan found it amusing, and not knowing what compelled her, she went straight up to the boy and asked, "What's your name?" The boy looked at her timidly, and after a long while said 3 words, "Wen Aikun." Liu Ruyan, under the panicked warning gazes of her parents, reached out and grabbed the boy's wrist. She said, "My parents want to sponsor you. You're an orphan. From now on, take the surname Liu Aikun. I am taking you home." 12-year-old Liu Aikun followed her back to the Liu home just like that. He was so stupid, really believing the Liu parents sincerely sponsored him, really believing Liu Ruyan took him home out of a burst of kindness. So he always stuttered, thanking the impatient Liu parents 1,000 times. Much later, when the Liu parents were out, a partner of the Liu family entered Liu Ruyan's bedroom. When Liu Ruyan pulled the knife from under her pillow, intending to stab the man, another knife had already stabbed into the man's heart from behind. Thunder roared outside the window. Liu Ruyan, in the flash of lightning, saw Liu Aikun's small face, pale with fear. Liu Ruyan didn't know how to describe the feeling of that moment, like a powerful punch, fiercely and ruthlessly striking her heart. 15-year-old Liu Ruyan tasted the feeling of being protected for the first time. It was a bit ridiculous that this feeling came from a 12-year-old boy. Liu Ruyan could see Liu Aikun's body trembling violently even in the dark, but the knife in his hand was still trying its best to stab the man's heart, until the man, in extreme pain and uncontrollable rage, turned around and strangled Liu Aikun. That slender neck seemed like it could be snapped with just a little force. Liu Ruyan rushed forward with the fruit knife. Liu Aikun's appearance that night she would never forget. Liu Aikun was so badly injured, yet in his pain, he still contacted the Liu parents. But he didn't know that while she was in the emergency room, the Liu parents rushed back, and each slapped Liu Ruyan hard across the face. Father Liu's voice sounded like he wanted to kill her. "Do you know General Manager Zhao is dead? Do you know what a big deal I lost? The one not loved by parents wasn't just Liu Aikun." So later, when Liu Aikun was 20, Liu Ruyan intentionally let him into the study to find the letter papers she wrote when she was 18. She thought they were fellow sufferers, people who had relied on each other for years. They were also naturally the ones who should be together forever. But her answer was a shocked and angry slap from Liu Aikun, along with his almost frenzied questioning. "Liu Ruyan, are you crazy? Your parents would never want to see you do something like this." Liu Ruyan's face was turned to the side and she burst out laughing. "They don't want to see it? Then they can just die. Dead people can't see anymore. My business, my choices, why should I care if those two want it or not?" Liu Aikun was furious, but couldn't do anything to her. He knocked over the teacup, then the books on the shelf, the pen holder on the desk. Finally, he threw everything to the ground. Only a mess remained on the floor. Liu Ruyan looked at him calmly. When he finally stopped, she made up her mind and said, "Why care about them? We can move abroad and never come back." "Liu Aikun, I can make money now. I can support you. You don't need to rely on their disgusting sponsorship anymore." After throwing things, Liu Aikun's expression finally calmed down. He said coldly, "You should see a psychiatrist. I'll tell your parents and tell them to take you for a checkup. If I hear words like that again, we will never see each other again." Liu Ruyan only heard his last sentence, "never see each other again." Suddenly feeling afraid, she hurriedly chased after him, her voice trembling. "Liu Aikun, let's talk again." But Liu Aikun walked out of the study and left the house without turning back. That night, snow fell heavily. Liu Ruyan's parents received a text message from Liu Aikun, asking them to meet at a cafe, saying General Manager Chen was there too. General Manager Chen was the business owner. Liu Ruyan's parents wanted to collaborate with most, so they drove through the heavy snow all night to get there. Because of poor visibility and the brakes failing in the heavy snow, a terrible car accident occurred. The assistant couldn't persuade her, and the next day, the secretary brought the psychiatrist to the house again. Liu Ruyan told the secretary that if he comes again, tell him to pack his stuff and get lost. After that, no one came looking for her. The huge house seemed to turn into a giant suffocating tomb, deadly. Liu Ruyan sat on the sofa before the floor-to-ceiling window, opening another bottle of wine. For a fleeting moment, she saw Liu Aikun sitting opposite her, raising his glass with a smile, looking at her and saying, "Ruyan, Happy New Year." She hurriedly raised her glass to clink with mine. The person opposite vanished in an instant. She pulled her hand back, bringing the wine glass to her lips. The strong alcohol made her heart ache. The day Liu Aikun came to her company for the last time, I told her, "Drink less wine, sis, your heart isn't good." "Why don't I come to advise her anymore now?" Calls to Liu Aikun still went unanswered. Later at the morning hall, Liu Aikun cried, explaining to Liu Ruyan that the message wasn't sent by him. That night I left my phone at the company. By the time I got it back, the car accident had already happened. Liu Ruyan didn't think at all, immediately saying she believed me. She believed everything I said. Besides, the death of those two people, she didn't care about either. The parents who once pushed her into a partner's room, she had long wished them dead. But after the funeral ended, Liu Ruyan accidentally overheard a conversation between me and Su Daji. Liu Aikun's voice was calm and relaxed. "Anyway, marrying anyone is fine, as long as it's not Liu Ruyan." Su Daji chuckled, despising her. Liu Aikun was silent for a long time, seemingly tacitly agreeing, speaking up only after a while. "Anyone can be with her. I don't want to." Liu Ruyan's feet seemed nailed to the spot. In her head, the three words despised her kept repeating. What they were talking about, Liu Ruyan knew best. After all, the incident of being pushed into that middle-aged man's room by her biological parents back then, that matter, in this entire life, Liu Ruyan only told Liu Aikun. She once thought in this world only I wouldn't despise her, only knew how to feel heartache for her. But it turned out I also found it disgusting. I treated that matter as a story, to tell Su Daji. That night, Liu Ruyan rushed out, squatting by the road vomiting until the world went dark. After many years, she, once again, tasted the feeling of being hated and discarded by everyone. That night, she returned to the old house, dug out the things carefully kept over the years, everything related to Liu Aikun. Except for that letter paper, everything was dragged to the living room, and she directly set fire to the large cardboard box. The flames flared up, dyeing her eyes red. In the blazing red vision, she saw Liu Aikun rushing in. It was strange. She hated to that extent. The moment she saw me, what she thought of was the letter paper still left in the study and the sentence Liu Aikun had just said not long ago. "If I hear or see such words again, we will never meet again." Clearly both angry and hateful, but in that moment it suddenly turned into extreme panic. Liu Ruyan panicked and stood up, rushing into the study amidst the rising flames, stuffing that letter paper into her chest, then pulling Liu Aikun out of the raging sea of fire. That night, Tong Jincheng picked up the letter paper Liu Ruyan had accidentally dropped. Also that night, Liu Aikun fell into a coma in the hospital. When waking up, my memory was suddenly disordered, claiming myself to be the biological child of the Liu family. Liu Ruyan hated me, hated the first person she trusted completely, who ended up stabbing her in the back. So she deliberately took revenge on me. She said her legs were ruined by the fire. I believed it. She said the company went bankrupt. She said she had depression. I believed that too. She took the money I desperately saved by eating shit in a basin every day and returned it all. Liu Ruyan tasted the flavor of revenge, but she didn't feel happy. She hated Liu Aikun, but she didn't even dare to say the real reason she hated me. She only dared to lie that it was because I sent that message to her parents, causing their deaths. But in reality, who actually sent that message? How those two people actually died? Why would she care? Hating Liu Aikun. But she realized she still loved me. Liu Ruyan sank into endless painful memories. She couldn't find Liu Aikun anymore. Couldn't call my number anymore either. The study was cold and silent. She sat before the open window and fell into a coma. Where did Liu Aikun go? Liu Ruyan spent a long time living in a daze. She locked herself at home. After rejecting countless calls from secretaries and assistants, the company gradually fell into chaos. The assistant came to her house, heartbrokenly, advising her. "President Liu, go back to the company and take a look. Those old foxes are fishing in troubled waters. The company is about to be in total chaos. The career you worked so hard to build for years, are you just going to watch it be destroyed?" That company was by Liu Ruyan, built with her own hands from 3 businesses since university. She didn't inherit anything. After those 2 died, she sold all their properties, keeping not a single penny, donating it all. Not for anything else, simply because she found the money they earned dirty. Liu Ruyan looked at the assistant, speaking absently after a long while. "I'm bankrupt. Where do I have a company anymore?" She remembered that, 5 years ago, she told Liu Aikun she was already bankrupt. When Liu Ruyan was drunk and dazed, the mechanical voice on the other end reminded her that Liu Aikun's number had become non-existent. Tonight is New Year's Eve. The moment fireworks bloomed far outside the window, Liu Ruyan covered her face with her hands, unable to hold back, sobbing and trembling. She knew. She actually knew. Liu Aikun said leave and he left. Once I leave, I won't come back. Tet passed. The New Year atmosphere also gradually faded. The snow melted, young buds began to sprout on tree branches. Liu Ruyan, after more than a month, finally stepped out of the house. Liu Aikun was gone. She also didn't know what she could live for. Like Liu Aikun said, disgusted, no one wasn't disgusted by her. Even she herself was disgusted by herself. Perhaps on that dark night many years ago, Liu Ruyan should have died there. That way, not long after, she wouldn't have met Liu Aikun. She naively fantasized she could also be saved and cared for, giving up the thought of seeking death. Without a purpose, Liu Ruyan wandered soullessly by the roadside. A familiar figure caught her eye. It was Su Daji. Su Daji had disappeared with Liu Aikun more than a month ago. Liu Ruyan's eyes suddenly turned red, almost rushing over to grab Su Daji's collar. Where is Liu Aikun? Where is he? Su Daji was stunned for a moment before recovering, pushing Liu Ruyan away with a dark face. Liu Ruyan drank too much, her whole body reeking of alcohol. Being pushed away, she staggered back a few steps. Su Daji looked at her coldly with hateful eyes. Didn't you want him to get lost sooner? Isn't it exactly as you wish now? Even if you hate him, want to take revenge on him, then those 5 years were enough for you to take revenge, right? Liu Ruyan froze on the spot for a moment, speechless. Su Daji sneered. But I'm quite curious. 5 years ago, you suddenly started hating him like that. What was it for? Don't tell me. It's because of that text message. Others might believe it, but I don't. Su Daji knew best. Liu Ruyan had always hated her parents. Liu Ruyan's expression was blank, staring blankly into the air, murmuring almost indistinguishably after a long time. He treated my pain as a story to tell you and said he found me dirty. Does a hypocritical, disgusting person like him deserve to be hated? Su Daji listened without understanding anything. What pain? What story? Found you dirty? Liu Ruyan, how much did you drink? That suspicious look, that uncomprehending expression caught Liu Ruyan's eyes. Liu Ruyan suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of unease and weightlessness wash over her, but that night she saw it with her own eyes, heard it with her own ears. Maybe it was because of the alcohol. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse. Don't pretend anymore. New Year's Eve. 5 years ago, you two talking in the corridor outside the private room? I heard it all. Su Daji's expression became even more suspicious. That was truly a matter from a very long time ago. She tried to recall, thinking for a long time before remembering. It turned out just because of such a small matter, it turned out just because of a few sentences, that Liu Ruyan misunderstood. It turned out Liu Aikun's pain and struggle over the past 5 years were just because of such a misunderstanding. Su Daji felt heavy in her heart, speaking up only after a long while. If you could have listened to a few more sentences back then, you would have discovered everything was completely different from what you thought. Liu Ruyan froze on the spot. She couldn't move. She heard Su Daji calmly recount the words Liu Aikun said next after she left that night. I am someone born sinking in mud. So, senior sister, don't joke with me like that. You know well the one who deserves to be despised is me. Since childhood, I haven't had familial love. The first time I had it was given by Liu Ruyan. But I'm not worthy of her. I know myself. If I really have to get married, anyone is fine. But with her, I don't want to. I hope she can marry the best man in this world. Not someone like me. Liu Aikun, before the age of 8, from the time in his mother's womb, was not loved. Father committed domestic violence, was addicted to gambling, younger brother learned his violent tendencies. Mother spoiled the younger brother, condoning the brother to harm me. At age 8, father died on the street while being dunned for debt. Mother abandoned Liu Aikun, taking the younger brother along. Liu Aikun entered the orphanage, still a target of bullying and isolation by peers. Until the year I was 12, Liu Ruyan seemed to fall from the sky, pulling me out of the mud. Someone like her should marry the best guy. It shouldn't be me. It can't be me. Liu Ruyan was dazed, standing on the spot, constantly shaking her head. Impossible. This is impossible. Su Daji chuckled softly. Liu Ruyan, do you understand what inferiority is? That cowardice ingrained in the bones when facing good things, instinctively stepping back and hiding? Not that one doesn't want it, but believing one will never have it. Just like the slap Liu Aikun gave Liu Ruyan that night, it wasn't angry criticism, but hiding in panic and confusion. Besides, compared to love, he was even more afraid of losing the bit of affection, akin to family love, that he had so hard to get. Liu Ruyan, how could you think that someone like Liu Aikun, who almost treats you as a deity, could despise you, hate you? Regarding that story, Liu Aikun also never told anyone. Actually, that night, in disbelief, Liu Ruyan had thought about listening on. But extreme anger and uncontrolled emotions finally urged her to leave that place, making her miss the words that followed. Later, perhaps after calming down, she would also go question Liu Aikun, knowing the truth. But ironically, that night after Liu Aikun had a high fever, memory disordered, recognizing her as his biological sister. Maybe I also didn't remember what I said to Sudaji anymore. But it must still be in time. You can go find Liu Aikun, can explain to me. She has many, many things. Too many things she wants to tell me. Guilt, regret, but painful like a knife cut. Liu Ruyan went home, hurriedly packing some luggage, planning to drive to find Liu Aikun. Sudaji didn't tell her where Liu Aikun had gone, but she thought whether in the country or abroad, the ends of the earth, she would definitely find me. Sooner or later, she would find me. I want to go somewhere else to settle down. She will go with me. When preparing to drive away, in the heavy rain, Tong Jincheng came looking again. Liu Ruyan didn't want to pay attention to him anymore. This time, she wouldn't hide her feelings anymore. Tong Jincheng also wouldn't have any trump cards left. Tong Jincheng rushed up intending to stop her. Liu Ruyan frowned, bluntly pushing him away. He immediately fell exaggeratedly into the rain, just like countless times before, a pair of pitiful eyes looking at Liu Ruyan. He thought his acting was very good. Previously, Liu Ruyan was just too lazy to expose him. Liu Ruyan got directly into the car. Before the car door closed, she heard Tong Jincheng's unwilling and hateful voice. "Wake up! You and Liu Aikun can never be together. Crazy guy, why can't we?" Tong Jincheng's somewhat mad voice continued to pour into her ears. "The ending in the book, you and I are destined to be together, and Liu Aikun is just a crazy cannon fodder, destined to die or disappear. What crazy nonsense is he speaking?" Liu Ruyan slammed the car door, driving away, but a severe, uncontrollable pain started in her head, as if an invisible force wanted to pull her back to Tong Jincheng's side. Again, it's happening again. Just like that night 5 years ago, she wanted to hear the rest of the conversation between Liu Aikun and Sudaji. It seemed it was also such a force, causing her, despite clearly wanting to stay, to choose to leave. The pain in her head became increasingly severe. Tong Jincheng's words kept ringing in her ears. The ending in the book, you and I are destined to be together. Liu Aikun is just a cannon fodder character destined to die or disappear. Wake up. Her vision gradually blurred. Cold sweat began to flow down her forehead for no reason. Liu Ruyan gradually didn't know what she was doing, where she was going, until the car veered more and more off course, gradually entering the winding, rugged mountain road. The road gradually led to the deserted mountain peak. At the end of that empty road, Liu Ruyan saw a back view, familiar, seemingly the back of 12-year-old Liu Aikun. That year, 15-year-old Liu Ruyan held my hand and said, "Liu Aikun, I'm taking you home." The car chased frantically, and in the final moment, Liu Ruyan suddenly remembered. Liu Aikun had grown up long ago. This year I was 25 years old, no longer the appearance of age 12. She was hallucinating, but the speeding car still crashed through the mountain road guardrail, rushing straight down the abyss. The car windows were tightly closed, but Liu Ruyan seemed to hear the fierce whistling wind. The sound of that wind poured into her ears, poured into her head. In that brain-splitting wind sound, along with the crazy wind, invading her head were countless things called plot lines. Liu Ruyan fell into a long coma. In that coma, she saw a novel, a two-way redemption novel named Dark Fall. She and Liu Aikun were the main characters in it. The story started from when Liu Aikun was 12. That year, Liu Ruyan took Liu Aikun, who was struggling in the mud, away. Most of the plot at the beginning of the book was what Liu Ruyan couldn't be more familiar with, the past of her and Liu Aikun. Until the night Liu Ruyan's parents passed away, the text content in the book began to show many manual strike-throughs. In the original plot that was changed, Liu Ruyan's parents were invited by a business friend, General Manager Chen. On the stormy night, they unfortunately had a car accident and passed away. At her parents' funeral, Liu Ruyan looked cold. Liu Aikun felt confused. That night, Liu Ruyan told Liu Aikun about her most painful past. Liu Aikun felt heartache for her past, and also understood her hatred towards her parents. On an evening more than 10 days later, Liu Ruyan overheard the conversation between Liu Aikun and Sudaji. She didn't leave halfway, but listened to the entire story. She emotionally revealed herself, completely pouring her heart out to Liu Aikun. She told Liu Aikun, in this world she couldn't marry anyone else, and in her eyes, no one was better than me. The plot reached the finale. As for Tong Jincheng, the neighbor's son, an unimportant supporting male, heartbroken from unrequited love, went abroad with a hasty ending. These plot lines were written over by a black ballpoint pen by hand. New plot lines. Changed to Liu Ruyan, parents received Liu Aikun's message before dying, leading to going out in the stormy night and having a car accident. Liu Ruyan lost her parents, thus hating Liu Aikun to the bone, no longer having affection. But the new plot couldn't be realized. Liu Ruyan didn't hate Liu Aikun because of that. So, the subsequent plot continued to be crossed out and changed. Liu Ruyan overheard the conversation between Liu Aikun and Sudaji, but left halfway, causing a misunderstanding. Liu Aikun suddenly had a high fever, memory disordered, recognizing Liu Ruyan as his biological sister. Liu Ruyan and Liu Aikun became increasingly distant, getting closer and closer to Tong Jinqing. Liu Aikun, depressed for many years, became ill, stomach illness getting worse, tormented by disease, the second half of his life leading to death or disappearance. Even the original reader's comments left on the book were crossed out, replaced by malicious comments. What a fool. At this time, the female lead has already raced cars with the male lead at the track. The sentimental supporting male should give up this time. Finished eating, then leave quickly. Finally gone. Liu Ruyan flipped through that manually altered novel, hands trembling more and more violently. So the thing she had been praying for day and night for so many years but still couldn't obtain, the thing she thought was too far to reach, destined never to possess in this life, turned out to be destined to belong to her from the very beginning of the story. It turned out the ending of her and Liu Aikun was never that of strangers. The night wind blew the chiffon curtains into the room, closing the last page of the book. Liu Ruyan's eyes were full of fury, but also panic, looking in the direction the wind blew, only to realize she was in a strange bedroom, and this book, or rather the stolen book, belonged to the owner of this bedroom. This wasn't a completely strange bedroom. She remembered many years ago she had visited the Tong family, guided by Father Tong to tour this place. Blue curtains and sofa, this was Tong Jinqing's bedroom. It was him. Indeed, it was him. Also the biggest beneficiary after the story was changed. The handwriting she had seen besides Tong Jinqing, who else could it be? Reason devastated, hatred, heartache, intense pain, countless chaotic emotions made her eyes red. He staggers up and walks out the door. The moment he steps out the door, she wakes up with a start from her dream. She is lying on a hospital bed, but she knows very well that wasn't a dream. The car falling off the cliff did not take his life, but it left her covered in injuries. Ignoring it all, she leaves the hospital and goes to Tong Jinqing's house. Tong's parents have both gone abroad. Tong Jinqing is home alone, and seeing her arrive, he says joyfully, "Liu Ruyan, you finally thought it through. Only we are destined to be together." Liu Ruyan shoves him aside, goes straight upstairs, and enters that bedroom. Just like in her dream, she pulls out the headboard, enters the password, and opens a secret compartment in the wall. Sure enough, it's exactly the same. Inside the compartment is a novel with pages curled from use. The content is identical. The handwritten alterations are also identical. Tong Jinqing's face turns pale. He rushes in terror, wanting to stop her, but it's too late. He collapses to the floor, staring at the book now in Liu Ruyan's hands. She wouldn't rush here for no reason. She wouldn't be able to open that secret compartment for no reason. She already knows all the plot points. She also knows the parts he altered. Tong Jinqing sits on the floor, dazed. The panic and fear in his eyes slowly turns into reckless madness. "Liu Ruyan, before you were 15, I was the one by your side. Why does that Liu Aikun get everything? Why is Liu Aikun the male lead and I can't be? So what if you know the original plot? The ending has been rewritten. No one can change it anymore. Your only choice is to be with me according to the plot." Liu Ruyan closes the book. After a long while, she slowly looks at him. "Then what if you die?" Cold sweat starts streaming down Tong Jinqing's forehead. "We are now the interdependent male and female leads. If I die, you will live the rest of your life in misery, lonely until old age. Do you think Liu Aikun will appreciate you then? Will he remember you? No, he will forget you completely. He'll forget all the plot points of the novel too." Liu Ruyan listens quietly, then smiles knowingly. "So I just need to drag you to hell with me, and this world will continue to exist as usual. Liu Aikun will live well. Hell, just forget me, and forget the plot in the book, that's all." Tong Jinqing's eyes widen as if they're about to split open. He looks at her in disbelief. "Are you crazy? Liu Ruyan, have you gone mad?" Liu Ruyan picks up a pen, trying to rewrite the bad ending for her and Liu Aikun. The ballpoint pen seems to be out of ink, leaving no trace. The headache grows more intense, crashing over her like a savage flood. The pen in her hand feels like it's turning into a sharp blade, stabbing into her heart. Ignoring everything, she tries to change every detail, until her gaze gradually stops at a single line of text. Her hand, gripping the pen tightly, is trembling. She uses all her strength to try and rewrite the words there. After repeating it countless times, the new strokes finally begin to faintly appear. Pain washes over Liu Ruyan. The agony in her head and internal organs becomes increasingly violent. It's just like Tong Jinqing's migraines. He wasn't lying. It's the backlash from altering the plot, but the emerging ink strokes make Liu Ruyan deliriously happy. Tong Jinqing's screams ring in her ears. You lunatic, do you want to die?" But this excruciating pain doesn't matter. Like a red tide, it slowly suffocates her. Fresh blood spills from the corner of her lips. She finally breathes a sigh of relief. Liu Ruyan stands up. She slowly approaches Tong Jincheng. Maybe she really is crazy. Starting from that night many years ago, Liu Ruyan might have already gone mad. Tong Jincheng's desperate laughter echoes through the room. Liu Ruyan, you aren't so innocent either. That night when you heard Liu Aiken and Su Daji's conversation, you chose not to trust him anymore. You didn't become the person from the original plot, the one who forever believed Liu Aikun wouldn't hurt you. The one who toppled the first tarot card, the one who allowed the new plot to unfold smoothly, was you, like a sharp knife stabbing into Liu Ruyan's heart. Dusk is falling. Golden twilight streams into the room. Liu Ruyan, bathed in the brilliant glow of the sunset, saw my vague, smiling face. I said, Ruyan, Happy New Year. Liu Ruyan didn't forget. Today is New Year's Eve. She once promised me that she would spend every New Year's Eve in Tet with me. But she knows there will be no later anymore. Reaching out to touch my smiling face, it shatters like a bubble. She realizes she has completely lost me. The summer of my second year abroad, my memory recovered to normal. It was also on that same day. Tong's parents, who always only cared about their careers, after Tong Jincheng had been missing for over half a year, wanted to find him for a marriage alliance. They finally realized their son was missing. After finishing their business deal, making some time, Mother Tong finally spared a moment to go to her son's place. Peeking into the room, by the time the body was discovered, Tong Jincheng was nothing but a white skeleton. Forensics determined he had been dead for over 6 months. Hearing the news left me astonished. That night, Liu Ruyan managed to get my new number and called me again. I suddenly remembered the bullet screen comments I saw before leaving the country last year. If that wasn't a hallucination from my messed up memory, then Tong Jincheng, as the novel's male lead, is now dead. What will happen to Liu Ruyan, the female lead? When I chose to go abroad, I assumed I had completely let go, thinking I'd never look back, never associate with Liu Ruyan again. But staring at the glowing phone screen for a long time, this time I still pressed answer. There was silence on the other end for a long while. Perhaps used to me rejecting her calls, Liu Ruyan couldn't quite believe it for a moment. After a while, her slightly urgent and chaotic voice finally came through. Is that you? Aikun? I was in my small rental off campus. It was the middle of a hot summer, and the old electric fan was creaking. I answered softly, giving a simple, yeah, then fell silent. I didn't mean to be cold to Liu Ruyan. It's just that for so many years, ever since Liu Ruyan's parents died, I really don't know how to interact comfortably with her anymore. Now that I've been abroad for over half a year, I feel even more that only estrangement and silence remain between us. After a long pause, Liu Ruyan finally spoke up. I'm in Berlin. Do you have time for a meal? I remained silent. She hurriedly explained in a panic, don't misunderstand. I'm on a business trip. It's just a coincidence. Really? I gripped the phone tight, still instinctively choosing to refuse. I have class this afternoon, so I probably don't have time. Actually, Liu Ruyan has never been one to pester people. She couldn't possibly miss my hint. But this time, she hastily said, it won't take long. We can pick a place near your school. An hour at most. Her voice faltered slightly. She carefully corrected herself. No, half an hour is enough. Just this once, okay? I had never heard her use this tone before. Tense, almost pleading. In the end, I agreed. I didn't want Liu Ruyan to know my school, so I picked a small Chinese restaurant and sent her the address. By the time I arrived, Liu Ruyan had already reached Berlin. The climate is usually mild, but this summer was unusually hot. At noon, there was hardly anyone outside. Yet Liu Ruyan was standing outside the small restaurant, standing by the road under the scorching sun. I got out of the car, looking at the figure by the road from a distance. I'm not nearsighted, but I stared for a long time, daring not to recognize her. She had truly lost too much weight. It was almost pathological, disturbingly thin. I stood there for a long time, looking at her, hardly able to determine if I had mistaken her for someone else. Until she noticed me too. I glanced over. We looked at each other for a long while. She didn't say anything, making me wonder even more if I had really made a mistake, until the woman walked towards me, with a hint of trembling in her voice. You're here. Only that familiar voice allowed me to finally confirm it was Liu Ruyan. Perhaps it was my imagination, but I seemed to see her eyes redden for a moment. Her face, which was famously flawless in her past life, was now so thin it looked deformed. I couldn't help but ask her, why have you lost so much weight? Liu Ruyan turned away, walking ahead, leading me inside. I heard her voice. The company has a promotional event. The boss has to make an appearance, so I lost some weight. Don't you boys understand best? The thinner you are, the better you look on camera. I really couldn't agree. You shouldn't lose this much. Moreover, with her personality back then, she would absolutely never care about whether she looked good on camera or not. Or perhaps this promotional activity was very important. The food had already been ordered. When we entered, the dishes began to be served. The meal proceeded in silence. I really couldn't find anything to talk to her about now. She kept her head down eating, constantly frowning. I thought the food didn't suit her taste, but glancing over I noticed her left palm pressing against her stomach, clearly trying hard to suppress it, but shaking violently. In the cool room, cold sweat streamed from her forehead down her cheeks. Even the veins on the back of her hand and temples were bulging visibly. She was trying her utmost to endure an extreme pain that an ordinary person couldn't withstand. I was shocked. What's wrong? Did you suddenly get sick? Liu Ruyan's lips were clearly pale, but she let go of her stomach, met my gaze, and smiled. It's nothing. I probably just caught a cold. I saw her complexion was really bad. Maybe we shouldn't eat. You should go to the hospital, she immediately said in a rush. It hasn't been half an hour yet. I couldn't help but frown. Are you really okay? Liu Ruyan nodded, her expression relaxing. Really, I'm fine. I feel much better now. There was wine on the table. She reached out for it. I quickly reached out to stop her. Don't drink that. Your heart isn't good. Liu Ruyan pulled her hand back. She glanced at me, staying silent for a long time. I don't know if the steam from the food blurred my vision, but I seemed to see mist in Liu Ruyan's eyes. I suddenly felt a bit flustered, turning my face away and lowering my head to keep eating. Suddenly, I even thought, was she actually not intending to drink just now, but simply waiting for me to say that? Liu Ruyan's voice rang in my ears. I misunderstood you 5 years ago. I'm truly sorry. For what I owed you in those 5 years, I'm also truly sorry. I heard it from Sudaji already. I misunderstood that you were disgusted by me being dirty, so you didn't want to marry me. The hardship and torment of those 5 years, I can't forget. But now, to say I hate you would be an exaggeration. I've just let it go, I said softly. It's all in the past. Liu Ruyan picked up the glass and took a sip of water. I saw her arm was still slightly trembling. I still couldn't help speaking up softly. What happened that year wasn't your fault. Ruyan, that darkness has passed. Live well from now on. Liu Ruyan lowered her head and continued drinking water. For a long time, she didn't raise her head. After eating, she tried to give me a bank card. I wouldn't take it, refusing no matter what she said. After a few tries, she was about to speak but stopped and finally put the card away. When the bus was about to arrive, she suddenly called me Kun Bao from behind. I turned around to look at her. She smiled, asking if I wanted a hug. I subconsciously refused. No need. The bus stopped beside me. Liu Ruyan walked up to me, curled her lips and said, "Just kidding. Don't take it seriously." As I got on the bus, I heard her behind me, saying to me, "You've gotten much thinner. Remember to eat more?" She herself had wasted away to that state, yet she could still say such things. I murmured a yeah, and sat down inside the bus. Through the window I saw her still standing outside, silently watching me. I truly never thought that look would be the last. The next afternoon, I went to the hospital for a checkup and was informed by the doctor that my years-long stomach illness was completely cured. Must be a misdiagnosis. I felt it was unbelievable. As I was leaving the hospital, I suddenly received a call from Sudaji. She asked me about Liu Ruyan's body. Do you want to come see her one last time? I had just left the doctor's office. The hospital corridor was noisy, so I didn't hear clearly. I asked her, what of Liu Ruyan's? I walked to the end of the corridor where there were no more medical staff or patients passing by. The surroundings quieted down. I clearly heard Sudaji repeat those few words, Liu Ruyan's body. That night, after I visited Liu Ruyan at the funeral home, I suddenly developed a high fever. I suddenly understood the many times Liu Ruyan almost begged, insisting on seeing me once. It was to say goodbye. Sudaji told me she died of stomach cancer. I didn't understand. She had a bad heart, but her stomach had never had any issues before. Sudaji was also suspicious. I heard she always had checkups, but suddenly one day, serious lesions were found in her stomach. It was already cancer. That night, lying in bed, my whole body burning with fever, yet feeling like I was in an ice cave, in my hazy consciousness, I had a dream. I dreamed of a blue bedroom and an old book. Handwritten lines about me were on it. Liu Aikun, sick from years of depression, his stomach illness worsening day by day, tormented by disease, he heads towards death or disappearance in the second half of his life. My vision wavered. I saw Liu Ruyan sitting at the desk, holding the pen countless times, trying to leave new strokes over the name Liu Aikun. Until a long while later, the name Liu Ruyan began to appear, while Liu Aikun faded like diluted ink and gradually vanished. The person at the desk slowly raised her head to look at me. I saw her paper-white face, exactly like the last time I saw her. The night wind blew the sheer curtains and the rewritten pages of the book. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. She smiled at me and said, "Aikun, Happy New Year. You've gotten much thinner. Remember to eat more." In the dream, my eyes felt like they were splitting open. I screamed but couldn't make a sound. My body was shoved by an invisible force, pushed out of that bedroom, pushed back into endless sleep. The night wind blew the sheer curtains at the window, swept away the pages on the coffee table, and seemed to blow into my mind, bit by bit sweeping away many things. They were extracted from my mind, extracted from my body. I unconsciously reached out to grab something, but uncontrollably, I sank into a coma. A high fever struck violently. When I woke up, 3 days had passed. Outside the window, the sun was brilliant. Sunlight streamed in. I looked towards the light, feeling my mind was a bit empty, as if missing something, but I couldn't say what. Maybe everyone feels this way after a serious illness. I returned to school, continued studying, and worked part-time outside of class to make ends meet. In my second year of studying abroad, my senior, Sudaji, recommended me, getting me an internship at a foreign company. Relying on the decent internship salary, I no longer needed to work multiple part-time jobs a day, and I gained my first work experience. After finishing my 3 years of study abroad, I stayed at the internship company, earning money and continuing to work. 3 years later, Sudaji and I decided to return to our home country together. Although honestly I had no relatives to visit, the motherland always makes one nostalgic. Having been in a foreign land for so long, one can't help but miss home. I returned, found a new job, and made a down payment on a very small house. It could be considered settling down. The day I moved in, that very day, several strangers in suits suddenly came to my house. They said a very distant cousin of mine had passed away, and her massive estate truly had no heir. So after searching the family tree, it was left to me. I immediately suspected it was a scam and called the police right away. As a result, the police and court verified it through multiple channels and confirmed it was real. The truth was unbelievable. That afternoon, for some reason, inheriting tens of billions from a stranger, a pie falling from the sky like this, ultimately made me feel guilty and ashamed. I kept a portion of the money, enough for me to live on for life. The rest, through the police and courts, I donated all of it, for orphans and impoverished children, as well as for the living expenses and treatment of the frail and sick. At the end of that year, I visited the children at the orphanage and adopted a 5-year-old girl. She got along very well with me. The first time we met, she clung to my shirt. I took her home. The small house wasn't cold anymore. The next tomb sweeping day, I took Xiaobao along with Sudaji to the cemetery to sweep her grandmother's grave. I have no relatives, no one to worship, so I could only tag along for someone else's grandmother. On tomb sweeping day, the cemetery was crowded. Offerings were placed before almost every grave. Only the grave next to Sudaji's grandmother's was cold and desolate, with nothing on it. Xiaobao probably thought that person was pitiful, so she placed a small flower she picked by the road on that grave. When we stood up to leave, the wind picked up in the cemetery. Xiaobao suddenly tugged at my shirt and said, "Daddy, that little flower is chasing after you." I looked down and saw the flower Xiaobao had placed on the stranger's grave had been blown by the wind to my feet. Xiaobao picked up the flower and placed it back on the grave. The weather was turning cold, feeling a bit chilly. I took off my coat and wrapped it tighter around Xiaobao. I shivered slightly myself. As we walked out of the cemetery, the wind blew against my face, making my eyes sting. Before I knew it, tears were falling.